everybody. Recognizing a quorum, I am calling this meeting of the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission to order at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. Commissioner Flanagan is joining us by the phone, so all votes will be conducted individually. Can I ask Commissioner Flanagan to say hello?
Hi.
Can everybody hear Commissioner Flanagan? Great. Can everybody hear me? Great. Can I ask, is this meeting being recorded? Since this meeting is being recorded, let me put the public on notice that indeed we are recording this meeting. Can I ask people to put their cell phones on mute or shut them off? Thank you. Just to set expectations, since people always ask, this is going to be a very brief meeting. But for those of you that are disappointed by that, which I can see a couple of disappointed faces out there, I promise you next week it's going to be a really long meeting. So we've got a lot of things, and you know, I appreciate your understanding. But next week will be an action-packed meeting. The agenda is pretty brief today. We, after I make a few more comments, we will approve minutes from one previous meeting. The executive director will give us an update, which this week will not include staffing. We have no new staff members and no new job postings, correct?
That's correct.
He will give us an update on priority certification, which I will steal his thunder by saying we're done, except that there's one left over that we have to vote on. So we will do that. We will also get an update on where we are with the license application process. Let me just remind everybody that another deadline or another milestone is coming up on Friday, the 1st of June. Actually, there's two milestones on the 1st of June. The first is that the window is now open to the general public. Those that did not receive priority certification, the window is now open for all categories of licenses as of June 1st. So that's one milestone. And second, according to the legislation and our regulations, June 1st is the first date that we are allowed to approve license applications. We'll give you an update on where we are in that process, but that also is a milestone coming up on Friday. Because I was unaware of this one lingering priority certification, I'm going to put that into the new business that I was not aware of, so we'll do that as item 6, the one priority certification recommendation from the staff. And we had, as agenda item number 5, a discussion on the actual application process, so the application review process, which I am going to postpone until next week. We do need some staff input that we have not yet gotten, and just I want to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So while we could start that conversation today, I think it's better to just hold off until Tuesday of next week. So that item number 5 will not be discussed today. And that's it. So as I said, it'll be a pretty brief agenda. Let me start by doing minutes from previous meetings. March 6th, we will review also next Tuesday. You're going to start hearing this theme of a lot of things that we're going to discuss next Tuesday. The March 6th meeting was a lengthy meeting with lengthy minutes that some of the commissioners require additional time to review, so we will not be voting on that today, but we will be reviewing and voting on the minutes from May 22nd, 2018. Can I ask the commissioners that they had a chance to review, and do they have any questions with respect to the minutes from March 22nd, or May 22nd, excuse me?
No.
Commissioner Flanagan?
I'm good.
Okay, then can I ask for a motion to approve the minutes from May 22nd, 2018?
So moved. Second.
Let the record show that Commissioner Flanagan made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride.
I think it was me.
Oh, I thought it was, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Thank you for pointing that out. I was 100% certain that was Commissioner Flanagan. Let the record show correctly that the motion to approve was made by Commissioner Doyle, seconded by Commissioner McBride. Commissioner Flanagan, your vote?
Yes.
Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner, why are you smiling?
Commissioner Title.
Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman, aye. Let the record show that the Commission unanimously approved the minutes from May 22nd, 2018. Thank you. Okay, it's up to you, Mr. Executive Director.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just by way of staffing, I'd like to just remind folks that we do have 2 openings currently, the positions of licensing specialist and director of investigations. Both of those openings close on June 5th. So if folks are interested, they are certainly encouraged to apply. As far as applications, the 2 slides you'll have before you today are relative to general license applications. In total, we've received to date There are 834 total applications pending. 707 of those, however, are incomplete, which again, as a reminder, is an indication that folks are working their way through the process, compiling necessary material, but they just have not fulfilled every section of the application, therefore have not submitted. There are 84, though, that are pending. Those 84 are at least one packet for a specific license type. That does not suggest that all 4 packets have been submitted and completed for the commission. And of course, 43 have been withdrawn, so therefore we have a total of 834. Those 84 that are pending break down into the table you see below there, which is 1 craft marijuana cooperative, 27 cultivators, 17 agent applications, 7 micro business, 9 product manufacturers, 3 research facility, which is not an independent testing lab, but instead a research facility, 19 retailers, and 1 transportation with an existing establishment license. So again, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. This does pertain to all license types that have been submitted for actual general licenses, not the certification as previously presented.
Questions?
So the next slide would represent.
No, sorry. I just meant from the commission.
Oh, sorry, fine.
The next slide would represent those that have submitted all 4 packets. There are 38 total that are currently being reviewed by staff. Again, the breakdown is as follows. There are 0 cooperative, 16 cultivation, 0 micro business, 8 product manufacturers, 3 research, 10 retail, and 1 transportation. So that's a total of 38 that are currently being reviewed by staff as having all 4 packets having been submitted.
And some of these applications are one applicant with multiple license applications, correctly?
That is correct, yes. There are 38 total applications. I do not have the breakdown as to how many entities or individual entities that may represent, but that's a great point, which is that one single R&D would represent, from I guess a business flow standpoint, 3 separate licenses from the commission: cultivation, product manufacturing, and retail. Again, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Where are they located? Do we have geographically a sense of where the license applications are, the locus of the establishment would be?
We certainly have addresses. I haven't, I guess, parsed that out to represent where they are in the Commonwealth, but by and large, if they're an existing RMD, they would be geographically diverse from an individual application standpoint. For instance, their cultivation would be separate from their retail typically. That said, I don't have a sense of how that represents or how that presents against a map of the Commonwealth.
Is that something we can commit to having for our next meeting? Or is there an issue in terms of confidentiality with that?
There very well could be. That said, I think it's something we could certainly begin to put together. And I should say now as well, which is when we get through these applications, we are collecting a good amount of data, and that's going to present, I think, a good picture of kind of how these are spread across the Commonwealth. Perhaps as we review them formally before the commission, that information, when we do make that public, could certainly be laid against the GIS mapping tool from an open data standpoint of how we want to present that publicly. But we could certainly pull that together, that information.
I would ask that because there has been a lot of conversation both among this commission, certainly among the market participation subcommittee, certainly in the press about impediments and the process at the municipal level, if we could have an understanding of where the applications are coming from, I think just that's a pretty important data point, and I would kind of like to understand that, even if we can't necessarily drill down to specific municipalities, if there's some reason why we can't do that, to understand regionally even where the applications are would be really, I think, helpful.
So we can commit that starting with our meeting next Tuesday, we'll provide that kind of information. Is that correct?
That's absolutely the case. I think we could certainly de-identify that information as well and try to present it. But to Commissioner McBride's point, I think at least from a regional or perhaps a county standpoint, we could certainly try to concentrate that information.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I think that's a great request. Can I request, Mr. Executive Director, for the 38 that are under review, can you just give a little bit of a kind of a process description of where they are and what activities we're performing?
Sure. So the first necessary step is to review each application for completeness, which is to ensure that information has been submitted in whole. That includes, for instance, in the application of intent, there is a certification that they've conducted and hosted a community outreach meeting, that they've satisfied and certified that there's a host community agreement in place, and then going through and checking the operations profile to make sure that each required document or policy has been submitted, and then finally, of course, is the background check information. Once compiled, the biggest step for us is to take anything that would be an external or third-party interaction, so including sending out the background check, those materials go out the door as soon as possible to ensure that we have adequate time to get them back as well as to review them. And then we start to dig into the information that is necessary for our review, which of course is the bulk of that is going to be reviewing the management and operations profile. So I think previously it's been discussed that from a background check standpoint, that turnaround time could be as long as 2 weeks or 15 days. So making sure that we get that information out. We do also have a municipal interaction that's necessary, which is to send out a notice to the city or town in which the licensee intends to operate within, that there is an application pending before the commission, and asking them to certify that they are compliant with all local zoning and bylaws. So those are notices that do go out to external folks, and trying to get those out as quickly as possible. And also try to notify the applicant if we do review for completeness that information is still necessary. And the earliest interaction is that the background check forms need to be completed and sent back to us, notifying them of that requirement, getting the information out to them, getting it back, and then shipping that information back out to CSI, our vendor for background checks. That's kind of I guess a really high level aspect of our review, but there is some third party or external interaction in trying to get that information out as soon as possible to make sure that it does come back in time to give us enough time for review is a real critical step.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Anything else on the licensing process or status?
There is not. I mean, it depends on when you want to consider it with the priority certification. I think there was an agenda item for an update on certification. You did indicate that there is a outstanding applicant. So, of course, when you declare something complete, there's always that one outstanding application. So we did learn upon completing the actual processing of applications that there was one outstanding applicant for economic empowerment. This application was submitted to the commission on May 18th, which is why it was not identified in the final batch for your consideration last week. I did review the application to ensure that it was not an outstanding reopen that the commission had identified and in fact reopened. That was not the case. It was an original application submitted to the commission on the 18th. The reason that submission was still available is because we did have applications that had been reopened. So if you began an application within the time frame, so this application, for instance, I believe was begun on April 9th, that you would still have the ability to submit it, to making sure that reopened applications could be resubmitted to the commission. So the submission has been closed as far as the system being able to process any more. This was one outstanding that unfortunately was submitted on the 18th, and therefore, because it was after the deadline, the recommendation would be to deny the application.
Yep. Are there any questions? Then can I have a motion to vote on the staff recommendation to deny economic empowerment applicant 202091?
So moved.
Let the record show Commissioner Doyle made, I got it right this time, Commissioner Doyle made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner McBride. Commissioner Flanagan, your vote? Yay.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Commissioner McBride?
Aye.
Commissioner Tittle?
Aye.
Commissioner Doyle?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoffman? Aye. Let the record show that the staff unanimously, or the commission unanimously approved the staff recommendation to deny this priority certification application. Thank you.
I am confident that is now the completion of the certification process.
And if it's not, you'll hear about it.
I'm sure I will. That said, we have processed all the applications, both in the system as well as notifying applicants based on last week's completion process, and now we'll do the same here. Folks have contacted us about what steps can be taken, and so we've engaged applicants. We've also encouraged them just because their application for certification may have been denied, that does not preclude them or prohibit them from applying for a license. As you did indicate, on June 1st, this being Friday, all applications will be available on our website, on the portal, the Cannabis Industry Portal, for all license types. So anyone that is interested in applying for a license will have the ability to do so. And that we are confident, again, that access will be as seamless as our previous rollouts of licenses and applications. So things on the system side are going just as expected.
Well, I guess I have to repeat what I said last week, which is congratulations to the staff for completing this, and once again, congratulations to the staff for completing this. And hopefully I don't have to say that again next week. But no, seriously, it's a great job by the entire staff, and really appreciate it. And what was the total number that we ended up processing, Sean? 380 something?
There were 205 that were approved. I could certainly pull that information, but it was in the 380 region.
Great performance. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Anything else, Mr. Executive Director?
That is all that I have.
Okay. As I said, we are going to skip the policy discussion on the application review process. I commit to my fellow commissioners, let alone to the public, that we will do that next Tuesday. And there'll be a few other agenda items that will make it, I think, in a much denser meeting. But there being no further business in front of the commission, I adjourn this meeting as of 10:46 on May 29, 2018. Thank you. Oh, sorry, next meeting, thank you. That's usually his job, not yours. Next meeting, week from today, the 5th of June. The location, please note, is tentative. We fully expect to be here, but we haven't gotten final confirmation. Is that correct, Jen?
That is correct.
That's correct. So we'll obviously send out a public notice sometime more than 48 hours ahead of the meeting. But right now, 10:30 a.m. next Tuesday, most likely in the same location as we are right now. Thank you very much, and thank you, Commissioner Flanagan.
Thank you.